Hey, Coach, that's a pretty sick hoodie you have on, by the way. That's a good one.
You want one?
Yeah.
I'll send you one.
He's shameless, Coach.
No.
Is that Malbon? What you got? A little vest? You got a little
Malbon cardigan? You play golf too? What's going on, Coach?
Yeah. Man, I'll hit a ball in the woods.
Yeah, so okay, that's funny. What do you get to do during basketball season? I'm sure it's all basketball all the time. Do you have time to read books? Like, what in the world can you do during basketball season?
Man, good question. I do a lot of things with my family. I got 4 kids, so I got 2 boys that play hoops, a daughter that rock climbs, and we have a simulator at the house. We built a basketball barn. It's got 2 pickleball courts, a climbing wall, and a little golf sim area. So we turn it loose at night every once in a while in between some film sessions.
Are you
a little family? My wife played soccer here at Tech, so we'll play a little pickleball.
That's what I was going to ask. If you're
jump in there.
You're a pickleball player. We have a court. We just built a court here at the house, and this guy from Ohio. I posted a video, Coach, on Twitter. It was just me hitting the ball. I got Meta glasses, so like I was just literally recording game tape. Like, right? I like to watch, see how I'm improving. And so some guy like trolled me on Twitter and was like, "You suck," and I was like, "I'll play you for $1,000." Never didn't even know who he was. And he was like, "I'm in." So now I got to fly to Ohio and play some dude I never met who was a 4-year D1 athlete for $1,000 in pickleball. But I got like a weird competitive like insecurity. Like growing up, how competitive were you? Where did that come from?
Oh, I'm a mess as a competitor. You know, like you do these personality tests, and I don't even know which one it was, but you have to rank like your 4. It comes back after you get done answering all these questions. It gives you like your 4 main characteristics, and my number 1 was competitive. And number 2 was like belief. And I'm telling you, it's awesome in everything but marriage.
Oh, you are so right. And I've only been married like
lose in marriage.
Yes, like 3 years. So I'm pretty new to being married, but you are speaking the gospel. Like it's like the young gospel to me right now, where I'm just learning that that's true, that it's not always about winning at times. You can lose, but still strategically win, which is probably not the best thing to, but you're talking my language now.
No, the true is the only way to really win in marriage is to lose. That's it. There is like that is the end. No, don't even try to even say you can win some and still win. No, it's 0. It's you lose, then you win.
I'm curious basketball wise, Coach, because you're a defensive genius, I feel, just looking at as you've risen through the ranks, looking at how good your defensive squads are. Is there the option to be great at both? Like, because again, you're a defensive guy, your team is built, and I could be wrong, but I feel like you are, let's play defense hard and then the offense will happen. But is it possible to specialize in both at the same time?
Yeah, it definitely. You know, the truth is, as a young coach, when I was 26 years old and got the opportunity to be a junior college head coach, we were in a conference with Mark Adams, who was the previous head coach at Texas Tech, who's a dear friend of mine. And in the rankings of all the past 25 years of defenses, that Texas Tech team in 2019 here is statistically the best defensive team ever in the last 25 years of college basketball. So, but he was actually the head coach at Howard College when I was 26 and the head coach at Midland College. So I coached against him. One game we had 14 points at the half playing against his defense. So honestly, my mind thinks offense, but I learned from him that you better be great defensively if you want to win. So we won a junior college national championship the first time. We scored over 90 points and averaged over 80 points. So honestly, my mind thinks offense, but I'm such a competitor and I want to win that I've focused on the defensive part of it because I think that's something that's more controllable in the environment of winning a game.
Coach, how upset do you get when your players miss free throws? Because I know as a viewer, I hate it.
Yeah, well, I don't get upset at all. Actually, I don't care.
Yeah, right.
That's where fans are different than coaches because you don't really. That's an effort thing that you want to have a guy miss. Try to let him squeeze that basketball really tight and worried about what you think too. I mean, it just. I think there's a balance to it, but it is funny because last year at Texas Tech we had the best free throw percentage in the history of the school. Okay, and I didn't talk to our guys about free throws one time. You know what I did? I recruited really good shooters so they could make them when it mattered. And honestly, there is a repetition, and I do think there's some skill obviously involved in it. But when you get to college, man, if you mess with somebody's shot, that's a personal thing for them, and it's a difficult thing to change. And it is funny because I do think it's more about confidence and repetition and feeling like you can step up there. But man, do people get mad at free throws? I mean, like, they're free. Why don't you make them? I'm like, well, because there's 15,000 people in here yelling and everybody's watching them. It's not the same.
No, I was watching Arkansas and Texas last night. I hate Texas with all my heart. Like I wish Texas would fall in a hole, coach. And I'm an Arkansas guy, but we were missing free throws late. We always miss free throws, but I never thought that you should just recruit good free throw shooters more so than spend 20 minutes at the end of practice shooting free throws.
Well, you know this, like there are some repetition things that I do think make it more repeatable, which are when you get under pressure, make it simpler for a person to control the variables. I mean, the less movement, the better in regards to efficiency. But I do think it's way more like mental than it is physical in a lot of ways. And the repetition of guys that have always seen them go in all their lives, there is something to that gives them a different level of confidence when they step up to the free throw line. And now I've coached guys where it's gone the other way too, where they went from being like 70 to like really bad. And what they did is they tried to go in and obsess over some detail to fix in their free throw shot and lost the connection to the confidence and flow of like being in the moment and being confident. It's a wild battle. And when it goes downhill, I mean, it's like a lot of things in golf or other things that are repetitive in nature, and it can get worse. But that's where I don't even we put guys in routines and we allow them the space to make improvements specifically. But man, I don't mess with that.
How much do you put into like Lenardi putting you guys in certain places right now? 2 seed, I think I just saw.
Oh, nothing. I mean, I don't mean that in disrespect to the people that make those decisions, but you and I both know. I mean, we've got 3 conference games and then plus the conference tournament, and man, so many things change, and the uncontrollables. I'm out of that game. When I was a junior college coach at 27, our second season, we had a path to maybe win the tournament. So I went through and like said, like, if we win this game, then we can be a 2 seed in the tournament. If we win these 3 games, then what happens if we win these 4? And I spent all this time doing all this math, and then you get to the end of the season, like I realized every second that I spent trying to figure out where they had us was 2 or 3 seconds that I could have invested in a relationship with someone that actually would have made an impact on winning. And so, man, I just flipped this whole thing in my brain of like, anytime there's a where do someone or what do I think could happen, I just like, well, let's invest in what actually does happen, which is people and relationships and their impact on what we're doing as a team. And it's changed my perspective and of all of the thought process in regard to where they put people in the NCAA tournament and projections.
With this part of the year, where's the balance in keeping players healthy and fresh and also keeping them in rhythm?
Yeah, I in my experience, what we do right now is we push the throttle down at the beginning of practice, and we'll start with a super competitive segment of like pressing, because you get to the end of games and that's what really matters. And we try to like rev it all the way up and get a transition drill going and then make it real competitive at the beginning of practice. And then we taper it off. And then at the end is like mentally, how do you execute, but nothing competitive, because what we found is guys get hurt, kind of more when they get fatigued at the end of practice than they do at the beginning. So I still think you got to practice. And if you ask me one thing that I talk to all my buddies coaching, like Scott Drew and Tommy Lloyd at Arizona and Ben McCollum at Drake and Ross Hodge at North Texas and Scott, we all talk about like, how do you make it competitive, but you don't want to get anybody hurt. But I do think there's a way to rev it all the way up where you still get that competitiveness and you can still put the throttle all the way down and get what you need, but not put anybody in harm's way.
Are there any heat check rules where if somebody's on, coach, and they're 2, 3, 4 in a row, where it's like understood, take another one? Like, are there any heat check rules at all?
Oh, I mean, if you say rules, there's like heat check. For me, I just love it when guys feel like Chance McMillan made one the other day at home where he shot it and turned around and went the other way. And honestly, like, would I prefer him to not do that on all shots? Yes. But when you are playing with a different level of confidence, that means we're playing at our best. And so, man, we love shooting threes. We shot 30 the other day and didn't make many of them, but I do think that there's a confidence level that your players have to play with on that side where once you get rolling, let's let it rip.
Coach, what's your relationship with referees? Like sometimes it's very, will you explain that call to me? And then sometimes it's like, what are you thinking? Do you know all these guys, right? So what's your relationship with them?
Man, I'll tell you what, I pray often, but I pray mostly about my relationships with refs and my wife. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but it's this wild part of the game that you know that the outcome isn't supposed to matter to them, but they impact the outcome so significantly by the flow and feel of it. And I'm confrontational in nature, so I don't mind the confrontation of communicating with them, but I don't think it's helpful. I got to be honest. I end up erring on the side of you get to the end that I wish I would have said less. And so in my areas of improvement, that usually ends up being one of the more significant ones is how do you communicate in a way that's respectful but doesn't imply that they're not doing a great job, honestly. And so I found more of that to be helpful, but I can't always do that in the moment.
What if like your counterpart is going to town on a ref? Do you feel like you got to step it up and meet him with that energy though, so he doesn't like rule the refs?
There's two parts to that because you can look at those refs and go like, if this guy says one more thing, it's going to get significantly worse for him. And the difference between that and then when you look at the guy and he seems frazzled by what's being said by the other coach, and then like, well, you better get a little part of this so that he doesn't just get in a place where he's making calls that don't necessarily help. So I do think there's some nuance maybe to that. But for the most part, the interactions in regards to that, the difference between somebody that complains a lot in our league and these referees talk and they do know going into each game. Like there's something different about someone that shows constant respect and asks questions and does want to understand that refs make mistakes too. And I do think that there's a part of that there's a sincerity there that most of the guys that I work with, they're awesome. And I do think that it's a difficult job. And when I look back on film, some of the calls that I complain about, now we have film on the bench. We used to not have this. Literally, we have access to every call every second when we watch it. We can pull it up in timeout and cue everything, and I can watch it. And I watch most plays at halftime of the game. So I have a better perspective, but I used to look back on it and go, man, I thought for sure that was a foul, and it wasn't one. So I think given the benefit of the doubt over the course of the game and trying to be somebody that's, man, just in a real way, trying to understand what the game is really being called like and trying to do your best to adapt is the best way to do it.
Is there peaking too early, and where do you guys feel like you are in the peaking scale?
Yes, there is in regards to, I think, a fatigue of your team when you kind of know all your weaknesses and those have been magnified. And I think that's when your team takes that dive. And I think as a coach, our hope is to find this real gratitude and belief in each other where you can concentrate. I'll give you an example. Like you can watch film with a team and you can show them all 15 turnovers of what happened. And you can magnify those things. And I think at the end of the season, how you really peak is you start showing only the plays that that can be catastrophic in nature and that your team is repeating. You show those, but really you try to show all the things that you want your team to do. And those guys that honestly get encouraged that way, it shows them more as highlighted and people want to do what you want them to do more than you telling them what not to do. And I think the season's long for everybody. So when you get to the end of the year, those people have been told like, don't do that, you're messing this up. You can see you can see the decline, and it wears on everybody because it is a long season. You're around each other all the time, and there are all these pressure moments, and all you want to do is tell them what you don't like about them because that's the easiest thing to identify. But to me, the way you get your team to peak at the end is you really get them to believe what you're best at as a team, and then they take away, man, this is what I can do, even if it's a role, and people don't like saying that word, but if it's a role that they can be great at, then they know this is where they're at their best to make the team the best. And I will tell you that our team's starting to really believe what we can do the best. Really, the key is just how healthy can you be, and that's probably the greatest determining factor of whether you go into these tournaments, peaking, is whether you're healthy. So that's one aspect. But I think the other aspect is like the real belief in each other and what you do well, and everybody basically like pouring into what those things that make your team great.
Coach, I was watching your game against Houston, and I noticed that Patrick Mahomes and his wife were there. What is that cool for your team to see Patrick and his wife like sitting right next to you guys, and even coaching a little bit too, him yelling and standing up and getting into the game?
Oh, it was epic. It was awesome. And I got a phone call from Dusty Womble, who's a regent, and I'm telling you, he's like one of the greatest guys I know, not just people that support Red Raider basketball and football, but his name's on our practice facility. He's just one of the greatest husbands and dads that I know. He's awesome. So he calls me, and he's got the seats, those Hollywood seats, and he's got the seats across from the bench too, 4 on the floor. And he's like, where do you think we should sit Mahomes? And I was like, wherever he wants to sit. If he wants to sit by the bench, it's great. So he comes and sits by the bench, and honestly, I don't interact with him a ton, but he's an unbelievable supporter of our university and our athletic department, and we got all these players that he's supporting. It's really unbelievable. Well, I meet him like face-to-face in the locker room before we go out, and he was really complimentary. Then we go sit on the floor, and I introduced myself to Brittany for the first time, and I'm like, you guys let it rip over here. Have a good time. She said, so you mean I can say anything to the refs? And Patrick's like, don't tell her that because you may get it. I was like, as long as you sit in these chairs, you can. But if you move over and get in my 4 chairs, then you probably shouldn't say anything to them. But no, they were, honestly, their energy and their belief in what we're doing is just a separator for us. And it was a blast. They were awesome.
I had 2 final questions for you, Coach. Tournament expansion, your thoughts?
Honestly, that's kind of goes in the category of what we talked about earlier of like, what seed are we? I just don't have any control over it. And I like the tournament the way it is. I mean, 64 to 68. I know there's a lot of reasons for it to be different. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I'm barely smart enough to call timeout at the right time and not run into Patrick Mahomes in a timeout. I mean, it's something probably out of my pay grade.
Okay, I'm not going to count that as a question then, since you didn't have really an answer, and you acted like you're dumb when you're obviously brilliant. But okay, I hear you, Coach. Okay, let me switch it up then. Is there a movie or like a scene from a movie that you show your players every year?
Ooh, yes, there is. There is. Shawshank Redemption.
Which part? Climbing to the poop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, that's the season. So it's like, you find a way to break through, and you finally get an opportunity, and then you got to go sludge through all this. And I actually reference it during games quite often, because let's just say you've missed 8 shots in a row, and you feel this like desperation, like you never know where the end of the tunnel really is, and you don't really know exactly what you're going to have to go through till you get through it. And so it's just this mental imagery of the freedom that you have, that you don't know when it's going to break through for you, but it's worth it when you finally get there. And yeah, it's that's the one.
Final question for you. It's a family question. High profile job. Your wife went to school there. I have other friends that are head coaches, football, basketball, different universities, and there's a dynamic when things are going great, you're the hero. When things eventually don't go great for a short amount of time or a long amount of time, you're not the hero, but you're very public, and your family has to take the good and the bad. Is that a conversation you've had with your family at all, going, hey, it's not always going to be awesome, but it's not real when it's not?
Oh, no question. I mean, this is honestly, man, my faith, my relationship with the Lord is the only thing that really is important. And I think in that, my relationship with my wife is that's everything. I mean, she was an unbelievable competitor. She's beautiful. She's freaking so cool. She's a blast. But when we were losing at North Texas one year, we lost 7 of our last 8 games. She like wouldn't talk to me after games. She's so mad at me, but not mad at me, but just mad at like, why is this happening and why can't we fix it? But as a competitor, when you're the wife, you can't really go coach a game. And then I've got 2 sons that play. I've got 4 kids. My daughter, they all play point guard. They all play basketball. They rock climb. They're like super competitive and they just love this. But I think the thing that you and I both know is like, if there's anything I want them to know is that I love them no matter what. Like there's a real grace to this. And there's a real humility in knowing that when everybody is shaming you, that or whatever the case may be, making fun of you, or there's some difficulty in that, like that there's a love there that is consistent no matter what you perform. And honestly, like I hope my wife and I's marriage and the way that we interact with each other teaches them that like how do we love each other in a way that isn't connected to how good you are at something. And I do think that that's the foundation of being great. And so when you say that, I just think it's how you live your life every day, where you love your kids and you help them in ways that aren't tied to their performance. And I think that's the key to all this. And I think that's the key to our team. And I think that's the key to life. And that how do you love people? So after we play these awesome games and we play really good, I tell our guys to pull out their phones and scroll and see 500 text messages. And then when we lose a game that we're not supposed to lose, go pull out your text message and there's 2 text messages most of the time. And one of them's from their mom. You know, it's like, these are the people that honestly, unfortunately, in this deal are going to be connected to you no matter what. And those are the people that you need to call and thank first when we win and do great things. And that's kind of how we try to mirror this all as how being a part of a team relates to your family, which relates to your question in regard to how you handle all this.
I mean, I'd climb through a poopy tunnel for you, Coach.
Yeah, me too.
You got me. I'm ready to climb through a tunnel of poop, whatever you need me to do. Yes, sir.
Red Raiders, baby.
I'm rooting for you guys. I rarely say any other team stuff, but wreck them. Big 12, let's go. That's what I say, wreck them.
I love it, man. I wreck them.
Yeah, beat the crap out of Kansas, win the tournament. Let's get a good seat. Hope you're near me. I'll come watch. But not far. I'm not going to travel far. But if you're near me regionally, I'll come watch. Coach, thank you so much. Good luck the rest of the season, and we really appreciate the time.
This is awesome. I hope you win $1,000 in the pickleball game.
Yeah, me too.
In Ohio, man.
Yes, sir.
Respect,
thank you, Coach.
Respect. Wreck 'em. See y'all.